Just have another cola bottle. Hang on.
Another what?
Just a cola bottle.
What the hell is a cola bottle?
It's like you don't know what a cola bottle is. It's so hard to explain.
I mean, like an old style, like Coca-Cola glass bottle. I just don't know. Zero context of what you're talking about.
So I was looking for a camera battery charger, and I thought I cannot find it anywhere. I thought, do you know what? I bet you it's in the bag that Julie used from the Japan trip in May. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But I found I've just dropped it. A millionaire shortbread from Marks and Spencer's that expired in June 2025. But also 2 bags of cola bottles. Reduced sugar as well, so they're healthy.
Oh, it's a snack.
Well, I wouldn't call it a snack. I would say it's more of a sweet. What you would call candy.
Yes, proper English. The history of the Coca-Cola content. Oh, I know what those are. Yeah, those are disgusting. Jesus, we've just wasted precious recording time on the disgusting candy. Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't. I'm really shocked that you didn't like them because I thought that would have definitely been your kind of thing.
No, have you ever seen me?
Of course, I'm being sarcastic.
Well, yeah, you've never seen me drink a bottle of Coke in my life, so why would I want the candy flavor? It's nasty stuff.
Good for planes.
Bad for your complexion too. Why do you think I have such nice skin? I don't drink any sodas at all. No sodas, no Sprite, no 7-Up, nothing. None of that nonsense.
I know, but I think all the gelatin or collagen in these cola bottles probably is good for my skin. Let me just see. Oh no, there's absolutely nothing. Nothing non-chemical in them.
There's nothing. Yes, that's right. Yes, there's nothing to be found on the good green earth.
Anyway,
in that product. Well, we solved that mystery. Riveting stuff as usual.
Yeah. I'll bring you some next time I'm over.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm sure I can get that here if I so had the desire. Right.
Hang on, I just had 2 more. Let's crack on.
92. Okay.
Yeah.
Boom.
Okay. Hang on. Just get rid of the remaining cola bottle. Okay.
This is as fun as the legendary. I've been eating a bon.
Did you say legendary there?
Legendary episode. The legendary episode.
It sounded a bit like legendary.
The Bon episode.
Which is the name of a city in Northern Ireland. Right. Okay. So here we go. My levels seem quite high, but hopefully it'll be all right. Yeah, it'll be fine. Brian will take care of it. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone to episode 92 of the Tokyo Jazz Joints podcast. Thanks for staying with us. We're nearly at 100, and we finished off in the last episode. I was in the wild north in Hokkaido, and I have it's a new day. A new day has dawned, and I have picked up my plane in Sapporo, and instead of returning home to Tokyo, I have flown straight to Kansai International Airport. And despite our best laid plans, James, you were late.
I was late. That is absolute nonsense. I departed.
No, you were late.
How was I late?
Well, because I managed to go to a place. I was so bored that I went to a place that we talked about, but we weren't going to have time to do together. Because you were late?
Yes. No. I think it was because actually your flight was way earlier than you had originally told me. That was one reason. And the second reason was the place in question turned out to be pretty easily accessible from the aforementioned Kix Airport. So no, I was actually earlier that day. I remember because I dropped off Sam, my darling OK Jazz dog, at the groomers, who generally open at 10 down the street from me, but she was there a little bit early, so I was able to drop him off get on the train, get on the Shinkansen, and zoom down to lovely Osaka. Maybe about 20 to 30 minutes before I thought I was going to get there. So I was feeling good, feeling energetic, ready to get the jazz in. And then, but as I was on the way, getting a text from you where you were saying like, oh, actually, I'm already here. I had the early flight. I forgot. I wrote down the wrong times. So that was how I don't know. It.
First of all, I mean, it shows how little you know me. Because to use the expression, I wrote down the earlier time. What in my little notebook that I keep in my breast pocket. I don't write things down, as you know.
Explains a lot.
So so that's bollocks. Anyway, you were basically late. What you're saying is you were late and early at the same time. Either way.
It all depends on how you look at it, but yes.
Either way. So we had a couple of days, I think 3 days, wasn't it, in the end, that we had planned out together. And what a 3 days it was. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. We went to some just amazing places. Some we knew and we never made it to, or we never made it together. And some we had sort of come across through various routes. But either way, it was a very fruitful trip.
Well, it was just like we were saying on the last episode, talking about Sapporo and how every time we go, we realize we actually need to do a couple more days than we planned. And there's places further out. There's always new places that pop on the scene. And even those mysterious places that you hear about that have absolutely no digital presence whatsoever. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, Osaka, I think this is the third time that we've been together. And we were able to get around to, I mean, absolutely, yeah, just looking at the list right now, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun 5 episodes. We say Osaka because that's where we started. We really ended up going to pretty much the entire Kansai region. Osaka, Western.
It's Kansai, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
Kansai.
I mean, it's actually
Western Japan. For those who don't know, when you refer to the Kansai, you're referring to Kyoto, Osaka, Kobe, Hyogo. That Western region of Japan, and it's all called Kansai. And I mean, just bountiful jazz joints.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I think it's going to be the next just Freudian slip. It's going to be the next 6 episodes, actually. And we're going to break it up into smaller chunks for this part of the trip. But I kicked off actually because of your tardiness at a place called Yuri, which is a very generic name actually. And we had both been together, I think, to the Yuri in Nagoya many years ago, back in 2018.
Much more well-known Yuri as well.
Yeah.
It's a very hot spot on the Jazz Kisa map, but this Yuri much less well known. I don't think we knew about it on our previous 2 trips at all, did we?
No, it's kind of a strange place. It is in Osaka, but it's in one of these kind of just lesser walked neighborhoods, I guess. There's so many of these types of neighborhoods in Japanese cities whereby they are relatively central, fairly accessible, but just by dint of, coincidence, fortune, whatever it might be, and they have many of the same things. A lot of people living there, a lot of, it did seem to me like a little bit less economically prosperous, I would say, but you have inevitably, your Shotengai, you have your selection of different types of shops, and Yuri is down one of these streets. It's a really nice little place. They've got a pink kind of awning over the shop. It has a man playing, I want to say trumpet. It has jazz, coffee, lunch, Yuri. And I just kind of thought we had it on the list. We weren't sure if we could fit it in. And I think probably we were also slightly constricted by some of the planning that we'd done around, closures, days on and days off. So I just nipped down to Yuri briefly. And I must say, I'm really glad that I did. It was a kind of a really interesting place. I looked at my notes and I've got this, I think I must have written this on the way back to the station just by voice, because it's got a sort of a slightly stream of consciousness feel to it.
Clearly it wasn't written on paper, since we know that you don't actually carry a pen.
Famously,
right? So it
famously,
dictated into your phone is what you mean to say.
I mean, I do actually carry a notepad, so at the risk of contradicting myself, I do actually write things down, but just not not the times of flights. Anyway, like it was kind of a really interesting experience. It was around lunchtime, and I think I'd been up relatively early, so I actually had some food there and kind of had a chat to him. And one of my sort of outstanding memories of it was how difficult, like I really had to concentrate to understand him. He spoke really strong, like Osaka Ben, and actually a couple of times I said, sorry, what is that, or like kind of question, but it was one of those classic examples where even like if it was me, if you're used to speaking to non-native English speakers and you get the sense they're not picking up like the slang or the colloquialisms, you kind of adjust your language, but absolutely no hint of that whatsoever. He just carried on with the all the rest of it.
It's so funny that this is how the great Kansai trip of this year kicks off, because there's quite a few other places that I have in the notes as well where I've written down like, whew, really struggling with that Osaka dialect today, But
it was hard work.
But this especially because you're looking at the map, Yuri, like you were mentioning, I mean, it is a very residential type of side neighborhood, so it's a bit of a deeper spot in Osaka. And looking at the building, it looks like it's kind of one of these like very generic type of Japanese two-story concrete buildings, but it looks like it's right next door to an apartment. Is that does he actually live in this building, or I mean, did you not get into that? Because it looks like it's both
I'm not really sure.
Residential.
I mean, I think he was kind of surprised, and he was quite surprised actually that I was there. I think that's the first thing, and then he seemed like quite tickled too, that someone had sort of come on I think it was a Sunday, wasn't it, a Sunday morning or whatever, to sit and talk to him.
Sunday? No. This was Friday morning.
Oh, Friday then, yeah.
Friday morning.
But like it turned out actually that he knew a friend of the project, Jerome, actually, and I think he had been there. He described him as a very tall man, and we sort of got chatting. So I got through in this stream of consciousness note I have here. I should read it in the style of a beat poet, but the first part says, Master knew quite a lot of places. He said he'd been ill a lot recently, so hadn't been up to much. I really had to concentrate hard to understand what he was saying. He took over from his mum and dad and added to the records. So you get the sense that, to me, it looks, it was definitely jazz, obviously, but it was a neighborhood lunch kind of place. Then he has taken over. Now he said he's a big rock fan, and one of the things that stood out, there's quite a few, there's a Jimi Hendrix album there, there's a Beatles album, there's quite a few rock, like a fair bit of rock memorabilia as well, but it was predominantly jazz.
I could see in some of the photos that are just randomly up on Google, like they've got the Stones, the Stones tongue logo poster. He's got, interestingly, in the front window, I recognized it right away because I used to love that album. It's War by U2, with just a close up, the black and white photo of the boy, and that's sort of like, okay, you see that in the window and you're thinking, okay, jazz, coffee, and lunch. Yuri, okay, this guy's also obviously, and would probably make sense with his age then, right? He probably grew up in the 80s and was listening to that kind of rock music. So, but it's funny too, Philip, because looking at, I found a different picture of the exterior that, it's definitely like upstairs is like a kind of dingy looking apartment, but that beautiful awning in the front where he's got jazz, coffee, lunch, Yuri in bigger letters, and then he's got the Miles Davis playing the trumpet pose, that famous logo, the sort of logo that they use on the Columbia albums, So it's just it's all right there. He's got the jazz, you've got the lunch, very heavily emphasized, but you may hear a rock album or two if you come in as well. So I mean, I'm very jealous that I was not able to make it. But yeah, you mentioned that again. Unfortunately, and a very common theme this year for us, his health issues were brought up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he had a sort of a sadness about the man. He really had this kind of like strange melancholy. he was. I had a really nice conversation with him. He seemed kind of quite entertained by the fact that I was there, that I knew Jerome, that we were going around looking, seeing all these places, and and really keen to talk. Made me a really nice curry with a nice salad. Nice menu for you too. Because actually,
now I'm happy that I did not go there. But watching you eat a curry at 11:30 in the morning would not have been a good kickoff to the
because
it's 3 days together. Believe me.
Quite a forward-thinking menu though, because I'm just looking here. I've got a few shots and things that you'd probably order. There's a honey latte, honey chai. Quite on trend. Get some donuts, hot cakey, apple pie. I mean, it's quite an extensive menu. Like, it's by no means, you know,
a bit of Americana there too. I like the sound of that. Apple pie, yeah.
No means just a curry rice and a coffee, but yeah, it was a really nice place. I mean, you know, I didn't spend a long time there, but I've obviously had enough time to chat to him, have my curry, and we got talking as well just about things. So he said actually his place had been featured on TV, but he's one of these guys, again, just didn't really care. So he said, oh yeah, the place was featured on TV, but he's like, I don't do any social media or anything. So he was kind of curious how I knew about Yuri at all, right. You know. And I think it may have been more recently that it was featured, yeah, I mean that was kind of the guts of it. But there was an interesting side note because I was just chatting, and as we sometimes do, we kind of pick the owner's brains about other places, you know, just to see what they come up with and whether it matches with kind of what we're expecting. And he talked about this, which we didn't go to in the end, a place called Cafe Nelly, which I think is like a really old school place. And I think when we were chatting, we did look at maybe trying to go, but the times didn't work out. I think it's on 2 floors. I imagine it to be not maybe dissimilar to that place that we went, maybe to Java or somewhere like that, or you know the other place that we went that was the owner of Bar Music in Shibuya, his mother, you know that place? Yes,
the one in Hiroshima. Yeah,
Hiroshima, that was it.
You see, my memory was actually that Cafe Nelly, and I'm going to try to look up the pictures now while we're talking. I think the reason that was because while it looked very lovely, it looked more cafe bar rather than jazz. Like it looked a little bit like maybe BGM-ish. And so we said, okay, maybe that's not at the top of our
I think it's
list.
changed, right? Because he kind of said, he said to me, he had gone recently and he said it's become a date spot. Oh, and then he was very annoyed because he'd sat, I think, on the ground floor, and there was a big group. It was a big group of 8 students, either up on the top floor or on the ground floor, opposite to where he was sitting. Right. And they were like really loud, so that he found that quite irritating.
Well, that's,
so he
most of the pictures are of like pretty looking cocktails and like pastries, but you do see in the background some speakers and some vinyl. So it's going to be on a list for next time anyway, though, for us to visit. Yeah, the Cafe Bar Nelly.
Well, we know how generous your definition of jazz keys is. So I mean, you'll be there straight away.
Deep cut.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, look, it was a nice way to start the day. Always nice to get another place, and I'm always conscious as well that sometimes I have to take those opportunities because not living in Japan currently, obviously it's not as easy to be down there, or it's a lot less likely to be down there. And even when I'm back, you know, sometimes we have different priorities and we're different places. So it was a lovely way to start the day. And actually he kind of showed me out. It was that classic thing of I wanted to photograph the front, but he insisted on showing me out. So what I had to do was photograph the front, ask him if I could photograph him. So I've got a portrait of him standing in front of it looking quite sad. And then when he went back in, I had to sort of sneak back up to the front to photograph it again without him. And it reminded me of that time that the owner waved at us right to the end of the street, and then we kept turning around.
King Kong Khan. Yeah.
Yeah, King Kong Khan.
I thought he was going to escort us back to the hotel. Yeah, I remember that.
Sometimes I think he may still be there just waiting for us to turn around again. But anyway, so it was a nice way to kick off the day, and actually it links to the next place, which was a lot less successful for us. But he was actually talking about the next place that we tried to go to. He mentioned about how the Mama-san of this place always wears a kimono, and I know again our friend Jerome is a big fan of this place as well. He often is there when he's in Japan. But one of the things that came up, there's some legendary story I think about that. I think he was saying that the Mama-san tells in this place, and it's that when Miles Davis was playing, at some point when he was playing in Osaka, there's this whole story that he he went down just to like the Shotengai, the shopping arcade, and he was just wandering about doing some shopping when he played a concert. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but for whatever...
listen, there's enough anecdotes of our jazz heroes of the past wandering around Japan. I mean, it easily could be true, easily not. But I mean, Poco, yeah, you're completely right. What's really interesting, and there's not a lot of pictures of Poco on the web. You will see one of the Mama-san outside the shop by the sign wearing a kimono. But what's really interesting, I'd heard about it for years too. For some reason, I don't know why it wasn't on our radar last time. I'm thinking the same reason, that maybe it had been closed on the Monday we wanted to go. But this time we were like, okay, Friday, it's going to be perfect. So me, again, being early, get to the station before you, take a walk around the side streets. And if you've been to Osaka, I think a lot of our listeners...
You were early this time, in fairness, but I mean...
A lot of our listeners have been to Osaka, but for people who haven't been, Osaka has been a merchant town, a trading center in Japan for 1,700 years. I know from my regular day job, because I had to look this up, Osaka has over 400,000
worlds collide.
400,000 registered small businesses. And so when you're walking those sort of side streets, it's just endless amounts of tiny little shops selling, parts, kind of like machine parts that you wouldn't even know what they are. It's just that kind of city. It feels very different once you get a feel for it than Tokyo, and what's really funny too about Poco is it might have the only plant life that you could see in central Osaka. So when I came around the corner, I recognized the building right away, and I was like, okay, great, there it is. But when I got closer, I thought, wait a second, why isn't the green sign outside? And I started to get a bad feeling. And sure enough, as I got up to the shop, the little green sign that says Modern Jazz Spot Poco, that's always, the owners always put out in the street in Japan, it was tucked in under the little alcove where the door was. And I was like, no, before I even saw the sign, Philip, I knew. I was like, it's closed. Before I even saw the sign.
It slightly took the edge off my my Yuri 11:30 a.m. curry buzz, but really disappointing, I have to say, because we talked a lot about Poco. We were there, good time to get in, get a bit of chat, maybe take some photos and so on.
And it was one
gorgeous,
of those
gorgeous sign.
And we've seen it before too. It was one of those, on the door, handwritten notices where it says in very polite Japanese, it's something like Shibaraku Rinjo Kyugo, suddenly I'm very sorry to take a sudden day off, very big apology. We'll be back open again tomorrow. And we were just sort of like, no, not even tomorrow, because it's not open on the weekends. I think Poco's only open on the That's
weekdays. What it was. I think it was, yeah. So we this was our only chance. Yeah, this was our only chance. It's a strange old sign too, because I think the Poco itself, it's his Modern Jazz Spot Poco, and the Poco has given me real kind of Studio Ghibli vibes. But then weirdly, you've got this little cutout of Mickey Mouse on the top, sort of soldered onto the top of the sign. It's quite odd.
I forgot about that. That's Japan. Just yes.
Yeah, just all worlds colliding, really. But so there's not much more to say about Poco. I mean, we've heard great things about it. We know people who have obviously been to it, who are regulars at it when they're visiting Japan, so on and so forth. If you're still listening at episode 146, let's say, for the sake of argument, we may, somewhere in 140s, if we're still going, we may cover Poco. Certainly when I'm back and we're together in that region, we'll definitely make a point of heading there. So yeah, highs and lows. Great start for me, obviously. Not such a good start for you. And we kind of turned that all around though by going just a short distance to this next place, which again is also somewhere that Jerome, whose ears must be burning at this point, has posted about before. And strangely, we'd never been to, and I don't really know why, because it was absolutely like something out of like a 60s film, right?
Oh, I mean, just wonderful in every single way. And Osaka, as I learned after we went there and did some more reading about it, it's an Osaka jazz, legendary spot. Opened in 1970. It's called Sub Jazz Cafe, and there's a reason for the sub. It's because it is literally it is within a subway station. I mean, Philip, I think that when we left there, I think I was telling you how when I was a kid in New York, they used to have, like, in the subway, they would have a lot of shops and things, either on the platform and definitely like in the stairwells and the hallways, everything like underground. And eventually they were all, disassembled. But in Japan, that still exists. There's entire like shopping malls, underground, connected in and outside of the subways. But we've never run into a jazz joint. I mean, this is the first time we've had a jazz spot of any kind that was located like literally subterranean. And I mean, It was just amazing. As soon as we walked in, I just had that immediate like, oh, okay, this is going to be great.
Yeah, it was for people who have been to Japan, and even if you haven't, like if you've been to like a major city with a extensive kind of subway network, like it is quite genuinely in the station, right? So like you come out the ticket gates, and often in stations in Japan, subway stations, you've got like a dizzying array of exits. You've got A1 to 6, and then you've got B2 to 3, and you've got C1 to 9, and like they go off in all directions, and this is just one of those. And quite often, actually, I know there, of course, there are lots of shops and places in stations and kiosks and all the rest of it. But quite often, because the stations are so big, a lot of those walkways are literally just, a very cold, unfeeling kind of corridor. Like there's tiles on the ground, it's, stone walls or whatever. And, they're just kind of, in any other city, you'd be almost like, in any other country, you'd be slightly nervous walking down some of them. They're kind of lit with the strip lights, and it's just like, they're not particularly nice places. They're just they're a functional space to get from one place to the other. But with Sub, it is just quite literally one of those. Pick an exit, you come out, and right on your left, just as you're walking down one of these corridors, there's this gorgeous little place. It's got Sub very clearly written on the door, frosted glass, says Jazz House, and as you said, open since 1970. So we headed in there, and more or less, again, I think they hadn't been open that long, but actually he was doing, I think, what he was calling, which I thought was really interesting, was like a jazz kind of kissa day. And because I guess it is perhaps more of a bar or a pub, but do you remember it was kind of branded like he was open specifically on that? I think ordinarily he wasn't open on that day, but he was doing this kind of daytime jazz kissa thing.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's these days. In the past, it had been open all day long. Like you said, it was open in 1970. By a guy named Nishiyama-san, who was just sort of a jazz, like he was a promoter, just one of those guys in the jazz scene, doing a lot of stuff in Osaka. So 1970 it was opened, and then in 2011, the current owner, who's also not just the owner, he's just a saxophone player himself, he's a performer, Hasegawa-san, he took it over because he used to basically go there as a student when he was a student in Osaka, and he learned the business. He learned about jazz. He learned about how to like put on gigs and stuff. He eventually went and, lived in New York to play, came back to Japan, and then just, took over Sub when Nishiyama-san was, sadly no longer able to run it. And then when he passed away. So, but for whatever reason, he runs it basically as now like a nighttime space. I think it's like 5 o'clock they open, and there's live stuff pretty much every night, except that every Friday, he opens up for lunchtime as a kissa. So you're going to be listening to the vinyl and having some coffee. And another very, very unique thing. So, first jazz joint inside a subway station. And what else is the first jazz joint experience that we had? Do you remember? You must remember.
Homemade muffins.
There you go. Homemade muffins. First of all, muffins on the menu was weird enough for me. It was like, what? Okay. Like a muffin at a jazz cafe.
Was it like blue?
It was blueberry.
What was it? I had a really nice one.
It was blueberry.
Yeah,
and it was great. Yeah. And you gave me a bite, and immediately I just thought, fuck, I should have ordered one of these.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's got the whole look of it is so old school, but then it's got one of those menus you see everywhere in Japan where it's kind of handwritten with like bubble letters, one of those white paint pens on a blackboard that you see. And it's kind of the sort of thing you see often outside kind of trendier cafes and whatnot. But I mean, he's got organic coffee, so it's good coffee. He's got this homemade muffins. There's also some cheesecake on there that he's ordering. And then it's inside this really old kind of atmospheric space, which when you go in, there's kind of on your right, there's like a counter space with a few seats. Well, actually, there's not really any seats available anymore at the counter, but there's quite a few tables. I mean, it probably sits 20 people, I would say. And I don't know if you remember, James, he had some very distinctive lights, which is, once again, our nemesis. They were made from those. They look like something to do with a ship.
Oh,
do you know?
No. Here we go. More nautical technology. I know exactly what you're
They look like
to
big footballs, like footballs in a net, but they light up.
Exactly. Big, like, big, I was going to say footballs because that has a different shape in my mind, but yes, I know what you mean. Yes, big circular orbs inside like a net, a very nautical kind of feel to it. But what I remember most in looking at the pictures now was, it's very, very wooden. Even the sign in the back above the piano is like a big wooden slab. It says Sub. And he's got some really, really great photos. I think there's one of like Oscar Peterson. He's got one of my most important jazz albums, the Freedom Now Suite by Max Roach. He's got that, album cover framed and up on the wall. And then behind like the counter, and like you mentioned on the right, where he's cooking the coffee, making lunch, whatever. He's got a cabinet full of vinyl. But it is interesting because it is a very much a live space these days. So I wonder why he doesn't like want to open. I remember talking to him just for a couple minutes. And the only thing that he really like was enlightening about was basically that, well, it's kind of a lot of hours if you're going to open up from lunch and go to 11 p.m. And I was like, hey, really valid reason, man. It's a long day. If you're getting there an hour before to set things up and you got an hour afterwards, you're looking at a 13-hour day in what is literally a subterranean space under the subway. So,
yeah, I mean, we wanted to be open all day, but that's because we're dropping in for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, of course, you wanted to be open anytime that suits, but like you say, it is a long old day. I mean, what's incredible about the space as well is that, even though it is this small space tucked in a subway, there's a full piano and drum kit down the back. So it must be a pretty intense and amazing experience when you're in there and it's full of people and live, very claustrophobic, very intense experience. But on the day that we were there, there was one guy came in, kind of looked like a businessman on a day off, and he sat kind of facing towards the piano. But I don't know if you remember as well, again, just reflecting on the kind of the way that things have changed, like this place doing a kind of a jazz kissa day and that sort of branding. And then also there was a young woman in on her own who also who sat kind of very close to the now playing sign and every single album she photographed and like she did write it down.
Right.
Wrote down what it was.
I remember that, and it was funny because I guess even after all these years, we still have our prejudices or preconceptions, I should say, because the kind of older Oji-san customer who came in for lunch looked like the kind of classic jazz kissa guy that you think would be, eyes closed, head down, nodding along to the music, and he just kind of ate his meal and left within like the not even a whole album played, where she was sitting there, taking the notes, taking pictures. I mean, it was great to see.
Yeah, I think it's that reminder that a lot of jazz kissa, traditionally were places of education, right? They were places where you went to learn about the music and in the most old school way possible, like you just, I mean, of course you have the internet to go and look up these things now, but she just made a note of each of the records, and it was really cool to see, because the more diverse and the more kind of broad the clientele become in jazz kissa, then the better it is for their long-term survival. So I think it's fantastic, and it was a really nice uplift after the disappointment of Poco.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm just having a quick look again at his. He does have a nice homepage here with a bit of English on it. So if you are listening and are going to be in Osaka, you can get the info from him. The music calendar is very full, including, and unfortunately I can't make it down. Just it's going to be a couple days after we were recording. A good friend of mine, Benjamin Herman from Holland. He's a well-known sax player, head of the New Cool Collective and a lot of other projects. So I've seen him play a bunch when he's been in Japan. We've hung out a few times. And I saw on his Instagram about his this Japan visit that he was playing at Sub in Osaka. And I was just like, wait, cool. What? Is it the same Sub? So I looked it up and it's like, yeah, the Benjamin Harmon Trio.
Gotta be, right? Yeah.
It's actually, let's see, it is September. Oh, goodness. It's literally happening as we are recording, Philip. It is Saturday the 20th. Isn't that
What are the
great?
chances?
Perfect timing. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of tells you that, like, it's not, you're not just going to be hearing like your local, I mean, not to say, I mean, the local music in Osaka is great, but the fact that he's hooked up with a guy like Benjamin to be like, okay, look, make this one of your stops on your Japan tour. I mean, that's just, that is just very, very cool. Yeah, absolutely. Love the joint.
Yeah, I mean, it's continuity too, right? Because, I mean, if you think, the number of stories we've heard about, what people who are considered now to be like jazz legends, jazz gods who 30, 40, 50 years ago did exactly the same thing, right? They were in some of these places either playing or just jamming or, hanging out and stuff. So, that's such a nice thread that's continued through and that like these places that are still going, in some cases with newer owners or younger owners, are continuing on that tradition. And it's not just, like you say, local musicians, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but like it's people are coming and using these spaces. And I mean, what an amazing place to see any gig. So absolutely fab place. So that's Sub, and that's actually the end of our first little foray into some new Kansai places on this particular trip. I should say, just before we finish, James, I was hoping you'd ask me how I was, but you haven't done it yet. So,
I mean, I have to have some actually would need to have some curiosity about that subject to ask you that question. So,
well, could you just feign it and ask me how I am?
So, Philip, how the hell are you, man?
James, I'm great, thanks. I've just come back actually from a place in England called Hebden Bridge, which is in Yorkshire.
That could only a place called Hebden Bridge could only be in England.
Well, you need to be. Yeah, well, that's. I was going to say. I thought you were going to say Yorkshire, and I thought you'd probably upset a lot of people from like Lancashire and other places. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful little town in Yorkshire, and I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but a fan and friend of the project, a guy called Ed Oxley, who runs an amazing clothing company called Hebtro Co. I recommend, if you're interested in that kind of clothing, you should look them up. They do some beautiful, beautiful stuff. But he came across our podcast famously when he told me that he'd fallen asleep to it many nights listening to us talk during COVID. And we've maintained this friendship and developed this kind of relationship. And he brought me over a few months ago for a listening event. And it all happened very organically. I mean, he's one of these people that definitely hides his light under a bushel because he's a very good organizer and he's got this gift of bringing people together. And as it turned out, we were going to do this listening event like the ones I've been doing in Belfast and other places, just to kind of get a bit of that spirit of jazz kisa and think about like immersive listening and just losing yourself in the music and all that kind of stuff. And we did it in a lovely place called Coin, which is an old bank, little restaurant in Hebden Bridge. But just by chance, another guy called Ed, who goes by Club 15 Sound Selectors on Instagram. He works for a Japanese audio company and he builds his own systems. So he got wind of this and he was like, "Do you want me to bring up this jazz kisa sound system that I've built?" And we were like,
yes, please.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. We're like, should we? No, let's not bother. No. Okay. Yes, fine. So anyway, so he very kindly brought that up from Leeds. And as it happens, he came up from Leeds with Neil Innes, who is the bass player, the owner and the sound engineer for ATA Records, All Things Analog Records, who are based also in Leeds. And if you don't know that label, I highly recommend you look up their catalogue. They have some incredible bands, not least the absolutely staggeringly good Work Money Death, if spiritual jazz is your thing. So Neil also turned up just to kind of hang out and help out. And so I got to know him a little bit. Anyway, so moving on 4 or 5 months, the new iteration of this event. So we did another one last weekend. And I have to say, it was just one of these like absolutely magical moments because we did this very similar format. Same people are involved, but actually what we did is during the daytime, Ed had organized for the other Ed, the sound Ed, to put a little tiny system in a sandwich shop just across the road. So all day long, we just stood in this beautiful Italian sandwich shop. And this Italian sandwich shop was run by Oliver, who also runs Coin, and his grandfather had a sandwich shop in New York, one of these classic Italian sub sandwich shops that was frequented by none less than Sophia Loren.
Oh.
So,
I mean,
right?
I'm feeling tingly just thinking about both the sandwich and Sophia Loren. I mean, I'd like to go
scroll
for both of
forward
those.
a few decades. There's a picture of Sophia Loren at this sandwich shop in New York, in this sandwich shop in Hebden Bridge. It's called Saltus, the same name. So we just hung out there most of the day, just listening to playing records on this beautiful little sound system in the sandwich shop. Customers coming in and out, getting their sandwiches, getting their coffees, and then we moved over to Coin in the evening for the event. And I have to say, it was just incredible because I did my usual listening event, talked a little bit about Tokyo Jazz Joints, some of the places that we've been, some of the photographs and how it links to the records that I'd chosen. But as a precursor to that part of the evening, Neil this time had brought up a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And so he played on this reel-to-reel tape the new Work Money Death album, which hasn't even been pressed on vinyl yet. So it just exists on these analog tapes. And he played side A, and you watch this beautiful tape just transfer from one reel to the next. Then there was a slight pause. Then he put on side B. And we all just sat, it was about 40 people just sat in this room listening to this just incredible album. And again, the first time that many people, the first time it had been played, certainly in public, the first time that obviously we had heard it. And long before, I think it's coming out in November. And it was just one of those magical experiences. And what's incredible as well about this album and the whole process is it's all recorded in one take. So each of the tracks, just one take. It's done live, it's recorded on the tape, and then it's also mixed and all done analog. And it was just an incredible event. And it just made me think, how much jazz kisa and this new awareness of jazz kisa and listening culture is linking into the kind of resurgence of analog culture outside Japan as well. It was just a beautiful moment.
It's gorgeous. And you know what? It's so funny, Philip, because literally simultaneously, and we actually had a quick phone call last weekend, I was immersed in one of the old school jazz kisa listening parties. So it'd been a long time since I'd gone down to Chinatown in Yokohama to Jazz Marshmallow. Jazz Marshmallow, run by the wonderful Joe Fusan, who runs the Marshmallow label here in Japan, who did a lot of albums issued by Eric Dolphy, Chet Baker, tons of different people. So I happened to have some free time and I popped in and they were just finishing up. It was 5:00. It was one of his twice monthly listening sessions where the regular customers, you just bring whatever records you want and they'll just start putting them on the sound system and you sit and you have your coffee or beer and you talk. And I completely forgot that he did that on the weekend. So, I just missed it, but I came in, he introduced me to all the old guys who were doing it. They were showing me their albums. And then when they left, Joe Fusan and I sat down, I had a beer and he just started, telling me more about, running the cafe. And he was in a very gregarious mood because he definitely dropped some extremely salty criticisms of a lot of jazz famous lot of salty comments about some other jazz cafe owners who may be famous who will remain nameless for now, but it was just interesting. He was in a real chatty mood and so just sitting there with him and then before I left he gave me the printed out calendar of the upcoming month and he was like, "Oh James, I remember you said you like Hank Mobley," and I was like, "I love Hank Mobley." He's like, "Well, try to come next month in October. We're going to have Hank Mobley afternoon from 3 to 6." And I was like, "Bing, I will be there." So,
and how much talking was there? Like, so I'm curious as well, like these are all older guys, right? So it's like the record goes on, you just sit and listen to the side and then sort of discuss or like react, or they're talking through the music.
Because I only just caught the end, but I've been to these events before, and a lot of the talk tends to be about, okay, where did you get this one? What shop did you buy it from? Is it an original or is it is it a Japanese press or an original press from the States? And then sometimes there's some audio talk, about how it was recorded, because you know how these guys love to talk audio stuff, right? So it's a bit of a mixture.
And during the tracks or after?
No. It's almost always after the track. Well, actually, when I got there, because it was only 4 people left, it was kind of really winding up, and they seemed to know each other, so they were chatting over the record that was playing. So it wasn't like sitting in silence. Very, very, very casual, and then something, another curious thing happened. So it's about 5:45, And then suddenly, like a sort of like a businesswoman in a suit, like just comes in, and she just says to Jofu-san and Mrs. Jofu, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, are you open?" Because we're just sitting there talking, and there's no music playing anymore. And she's like, "Oh, we close at 6, but please come on in." And so the business lady comes in, sits down, orders a coffee, and then pulls out her notebook and her computer and starts working. And we're like, oh, okay. So she's just looking for a place to sit to work. And then Jofu-san goes over and he's like, oh, do you have any requests? And she's like, I don't really know jazz, but please play whatever you like. And he's like, okay. So he puts on a really soft like Bill Evans album, I guess because she was working.
Come on.
But I was really tempted to like say like, okay, come on, can you put on like Ascension or something, But it was just curious because, the lady clearly like was not a jazz fan. She was just looking for a place to sit down.
I thought he was gonna tell her to take the to put the computer away. But just for context as well, for those listening, if you have a copy of the book, or if you want to go on to TokyoJazzJoints.com, Jofu-san is the guy. It's one of my favorite photos. Actually, it's a long time ago it was taken now, but he's sitting by a window smoking, looking out over Yokohama Chinatown, and he's framed on the left by the kind of a part of the speaker, and then on the right, a very extensive CD collection, all filed beautifully.
Oh yeah,
and,
I love that picture. I think sadly, I'm not sure, and I'll delicately try to ask next time. I think he may have had some health issues, very noticeably not chain smoking when I was there, and his voice had a bit of a slur to it that we've heard before when people had a stroke. I mean, again, not a doctor, but his voice was definitely different, and he was slurring quite a bit. So I'm not sure what was going on with him. I mean, look, he's 80 years old. Very famously, he was born 2 days after the war ended in Chinatown. So he is a deep local guy, and has pretty much been there all his life. Used to run I think we talked about this on a way long back episode, but he used to run a clothing shop right on my shopping street around the corner from my house. That's where I first saw him, not knowing he was a jazz guy all that time, which was crazy. But it was really just great spending the afternoon with him and his wife. And they were asking me about what's going on with me, and am I staying in Yokohama and all that. It just felt very local, very jazzy, and I was glad to get back. And I'm going to definitely make sure I hit that Hank Mobley next month.
So shout out to Jofu-san at Marshmallow, of course, always. A shout out to Ed at Hebtro Co., to Oliver at Coin, to Ed and Club 15 Sound Selectors, and Neil at the mighty Atta Records. And look out for that Work Money Death album coming out in a couple of months. And also, James, a happy coincidence, just of all the strange things to happen. I happened to be in a shop and somebody said to me, yes, I'm going to Japan again next year, and I'm going to meet my friend. And I said, oh, aye, who's your friend? And of course, what did he say? James Catchpole. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't react. I was like, okay, and how do you know him? And I just thought, and Ed was looking at me going, are you going to tell him like that?
He's like,
James
oh, not that freaking guy, man. Come on.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so that was weird in and of itself, because this guy also has done some artwork for various record labels. He knows Yusuke from Universe Sounds. And then weirdly, as I was sitting there, another guy kind of called out to me, and he was like, oh yeah, this guy, I can't remember how it even came up, but I said, so what's your name? He said, oh, I know James. And who was it actually that was talking to me?
Oh, good dear friend of mine, Scott Conliffe from Burnley, in Northern England. Went to graduate school with Scott in London more than 20 years ago. He's a longtime Asia guy as well. We've hung out together in Indonesia, hung out here in Japan, and he'd moved back to England, a couple years back, and just randomly happened to be by there. So I mean, when you sent me the picture, I was just like, wait, what? What's going on here? That was a wonderful coincidence.
It was so weird, and it just makes me think, like this world that we sort of also inhabit, this musical world. It's such a cliche, but it really is small. Like how connected people are, like the chances of being there and being in that shop, and like you can draw all these lines between people with different kind of connections. So it's such a privilege to be able to make these connections and meet these people and do these kind of things, so long may that continue. But look, we'll wrap up episode 92 right there, I think. And we'll see you all in episode 93, where we will continue the first day of our Kansai adventure. James, in the meantime, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And
Hey, maybe even sooner than we think, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Cheers.
Ciao. Bye-bye.